viewers. I thought I would give you a little bit of scenery for my current speech. This is on the heels of my high school graduation speech. This is my college graduation speech, should I ever land in a position that anyone would want to invite me. So here goes. Thank you so much for having me, Generic State University. Today we're celebrating a big milestone. In simplest terms, you all are united by the fact that you completed 120 something credits to earn your diploma, but there's a little bit more than that. First, you all did it with integrity. As long as you didn't cheat, I'm not gonna know that. You all did it with integrity. You all signed an honor code, and you created an environment, which I'll get to a little bit later, where when you decided not to cheat, you helped your neighbors and your peers not cheat either. They would go to a test and they would look around and say, should I cheat? Well, my peers aren't cheating, and that encouraged them to cheat. This honor code, so you chose to learn with integrity, and that means that this honor code is something that you might not have later in life. There's plenty of opportunities in trading the stock market, running a company, where you can get away with cheating, and you'll have to decide and to learn that integrity. And if you do that, I think the world will be 100 times of a better place. Another thing you learned to do was to live on your own. I'm not saying that I would rent you guys an apartment, knowing what my peers in college did to their dorms, but you at least made a go of it, and you hopefully that will help you with the next level. And lastly, you learn to manage your time. You went from an environment where everything was carefully managed for about 6-7 hours a day to only having some places in time and some places and times where you had to learn, where you had to be at a certain place. And that's not easy. Then you run into the multiplicity of options. This means that it can be overwhelming and scary. How many of you came to college and said, oh my God, what am I going to do? How am I going to manage my time? You could have increased your social life. You could have increased your extracurricular activities. You could have engaged in your faith. You could have engaged in ways to make money on top of your studies. And you had to make a lot of choices. And for some of you, you pursued something like music or a varsity sport with a passion that few of us would ever know outside of college. And that is and the scary thing, or the great thing, is that after tomorrow, you're going to go from having a few places where you'll have to be to potentially having nowhere where you'll have to be. And in a sense, the entire world's the limit. You have 7 continents you could be on. You could live with anywhere you want to among 8.5 billion people. Although I will say it's probably very unlikely that any of you are going to be posted to McMurdoch Station in Antarctica. So let's just narrow it down to 6 continents among your choices, and you probably are not going to be getting a visa to Russia or China or Iran or Oman anytime soon. So let's just say maybe 7.5 billion people is what your peer group is now going to be, and that's going to be pretty daunting. So to talk about what I'm going to tell you about what you should be in the future, I'm going to be a little corny. I'm going to quote a song that came out the year that we're going to walk over this way to get away from the plane. I am going to quote a song that came out the year that I started college in 2002. It's by John Mayer, who you might know for dating a lot of celebrities, having a very big head, but he also is a great wordsmith. He wrote a song about the myths of adulthood that we teach ourselves. The song is called No Such Thing, and he says, so the good boys and girls take the so-called right track, faded white hats, grab the credits, make the transfers, they read all the books, but they can't find the answers. And of course that line stuck with me, but then again, that line was in 2002, and it struck with me in a very different way than it might now, because back in 2002, you didn't have as many options for obtaining knowledge outside of a book, and that was a rebellious way of talking about thinking outside the lines. Now, knowledge is so much more ubiquitous. In fact, when I graduated college, the year that I graduated college, something called Wikipedia was invented. And there was all this talk about how Wikipedia could upset the whole paradigm about how going to college, why read a textbook? Why go through the whole thing when you could look up anything you want on Wikipedia? it was kind of scary, and we had to navigate that technology. And I can't even speak to exactly how much technology, how crazy technology is getting. If everyone is gonna put every graduation speech that I've watched to inspire me for this moment, for this speech, has mentioned AI in some form. That's just the tip of the iceberg of a series of technological changes that's been happening forever. There's always a new technology. And in that case, number one, I advise you, anytime that there's something that you want to know or need to know, there's absolutely nothing to lose by reading the book, by getting the answer the hard way. Additionally, I also want to talk about how there's one thing that I came to learn, at least by the time that I graduated college, was that there are different environments, there are different auras, there are different atmospheres. And I actually went to 4 colleges by the time I got my degree. One was a party school, one was a school in a big city, one was a commuter school, and one was a small liberal arts college. And they each had different atmospheres. That was entirely different ball games of how college should feel like. And I couldn't change it. I wanted one kind of school, and I couldn't make it that because the school wasn't changing. But you know who does change it is the professors. So in the age of knowledge being ubiquitous and wondering what does college do when knowledge is available, it's the professors who are the new books. The professors are the ones who curate a program, who create an atmosphere in that college, in that classroom, who decide what should be learned, who bring life to the college. And in every college, there's always great professors. And when you think about the environment that you create in the future, you should, whether it's what kind of living space you want to be, what kind of working space you want to be, what kind of family you want to surround yourself, what kind of community you want to be, you should always try to bring that feeling that those professors gave to you. And also, don't forget to thank those professors on your way out of the campus today. I would sure that they'd be happy to know they were good, because professors don't always know that they're reaching their students, I'm sure. But let's talk about like the real big things, like okay, what's gonna happen now? Because yes, the world is kind of scary, and some of you might be like, what am I gonna do? What kind of adult am I gonna be? What kind of a job am I gonna get? So first of all, the career center which you came to, which probably gave you advice on how to polish your resume and how to do a job interview, they did not give you the full picture of what's necessary for the road ahead, which is how to react when you don't get your dream job. Part of it is the mental and emotional component. Mentally, what's it going to be like if I'm not where I want to be in life, and I see on social media that my friends are doing great and getting jobs and getting houses? Number 2 is how am I going to engage myself? Life is not predestined in the way it was before, but how am I going to engage with the world? How am I going to have goals and meaningful things to do with myself? That is 100 times more useful than any college career center can do. But beyond that, it's okay, plan A didn't work. What's plan B? What's plan C? What's plan D? And there's 100 things you can do. There's Peace Corps, there's AmeriCorps, there's students helping Honduras, there's living off the grid. I'm not suggesting that you're not free from your obligations to earn an income. You should pay for your living expenses, but beyond that, there's a million ways to go about it. But more than that, when I talk about plan A, plan B, plan C, and plan D, I want you to consider that plan A might just be a lie. It might be an illusion. Very often, plan A was probably forced upon us. It was probably a vision that was formed by the generation before us. The image of our parents we saw our parents dressing up in suits and ties and going to some cubicle with a badge. I have one of these because I am currently employed. A badge that looks like this, and you're like, well, I want a badge. When I graduated college, I was like, I don't want these dumb jobs of working in a movie theater or working as a temp. I want a job like this where I can go into a building and be through security. And you might not know this, but that job might not be all it's cracked up to be. And the great news is that each generation actually changes what a job is from the generation before it. The idea of flexible commute times and commuting and working from home thanks to the pandemic, our generation has changed things to be more convenient and more flexible and more comfortable for the people below it. And you are part of that generation. Each one of you plays a role in creating a better future simply by questioning what a job is. I'm not suggesting that you are free from you. So I would encourage you to reject the parts of adulthood that don't work for you. Adulthood can often be an illusion. I don't mean, don't sit around smoking pot and that's adulthood to you. You still have to earn income, but as long as you get your living needs met, that's whatever. I also encourage you to throw pride out the window completely. How many of you think that working at Target or Urban Outfitters are not fit for a college student? Because I know two people who did that upon graduating college, and they did really well. They worked up the ladder, but they had to say, okay, it's not below me to work that. My first job, the first thing I did when I graduated college, was I went to New Orleans to help with relief to Hurricane Katrina. I said, I'm a college graduate, so I don't want to gut houses. I don't want to like get involved in construction. Can you give me a job like databasing or something? Like, it was the absolute stupidest thing I could do, and the disrespect I was showing to the people who were actually victimized by the hurricane, because I just thought I'm too good for helping people hit by the hurricane. So I want to end with this quote by John Mayer that says, this from the same song, "Welcome to the real world," she said to me condescendingly. "Take a seat, take your life, plot it out in black and white. I want to run through the halls of my high school. I want to scream at the top of my lungs. I just found out there's no such thing as the real world. Just a law you have to rise above." Again, it's very corny to quote a song quote. But I encourage each and every one of you to discard the parts of adulthood that are unnecessary and to find the version of adulthood that fits you. It might not be easy. It might take a while, but I assure you that when you find it, I really think that you are going to be screaming at the top of your lungs with self-discovery. And I hope that each and every one of you takes that journey to get to that point with grace, with patience, with happiness, and with an open sense of curiosity. Thanks.